Good evening, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. My name is Nikisha Williams, and I am Vice President of Collective Impact at the Miami Foundation. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. This evening's forum will be conducted in English with interpretation available in Spanish, Haitian Creole, and American Sign Language. To enable interpretation, simply go to the bottom of your screen and click the globe icon to select your preferred language. This message will now be translated into Spanish and Haitian Creole.
Buenas tardes. Esta noche vamos a proveer interpretación en español y en criollo haitiano. Mi nombre es María Angélica Ramírez, mis pronombres son ella y ella, y hoy estamos proveyendo interpretación con Marble Language Services para asegurarnos de que todos podamos hoy participar en el idioma que prefiramos en este espacio tan importante. Si ustedes pueden escuchar y prefieren escuchar en español, les pedimos que por favor activen la interpretación. Si están conectando desde un computador, por favor hagan clic en el globo abajo donde dice interpretación y elijan español. Si están conectando desde un teléfono o una tableta, por favor toquen los tres puntos abajo a la derecha que dicen más, eligen interpretación, eligen español y arriba a la derecha eligen finalizado. Muchas gracias y ahora le paso el micrófono a Criollo Haitiano.
Bonsoir tout le monde. Non pas M. Loud avec Mob Language Service. Et à soir, c'est un plaisir pour moi, ensemble avec collègue Mendebi, pour nous assurer interprétation pour nous dans la langue créole haïtienne. Donc, nous demandons si vous avez entendre et puis participer en créole haïtien. Donc, c'est mon moment pour là pour choisir et créole et puis regarder sous et computer ou en bas à droite ou après un globe terrestre, ou cliquer sur lui et puis choisir créole haïtien et ou prêter dans le canal haïtien pour attendre en créole haïtien. Soit attendez sous téléphone intelligent, on a regardé trois petits points en bas à droite qui dit more, ça veut dire plus, ou cliquer sur lui et puis c'est la bonne option interprétation quand on peut choisir créole haïtien. Yon faut fin choisir et langue vrai que c'est créole, ou regarder en l'air à droite un côté qui dit done, ça veut dire ou fini, pour finaliser le choix qu'on fait. Donc, aussitôt qu'on fait ça, on va tomber dans le canal haïtien, et puis on va attendre et puis participer comme ça doit. Donc, nous disons déjà merci et puis bonne participation. Over.
Good evening, Miami. You made it. You made it here tonight, and thank you to everyone that is tuning in. Whether you're part of our live audience, whether you're driving home, whether you're watching on our website, or if you happen to be at a watch party. And speaking of which, right now at Barry University, we have a group of incredible partners that are hosting a watch party live. So shout out to the United Way of Miami, Engage Miami, and the League of Women Voters of Miami-Dade County. Thank you so much for providing this space to the students at Broward University and for the greater community. So you know, we often hear the word, what it means to be civically engaged and what the spirit of civic engagement is. And so when I think about that, I honestly think about each and every one of you that are here tonight. You know, you're here because you care about Miami. You're here because you recognize the power of local elections. And you're here because you choose to be informed and engaged. And that's exactly what it requires. It requires attention. It requires this civic engaged Miami requires participation. So I want to start by saying thank you. My name is Faith Grant, and I'm the Collective Impact Officer at the Miami Foundation. And at our foundation, we envision a Miami where everyone thrives. And in order to make that vision a reality, what's key is that we have strong, effective leaders in positions of leadership. And positions of leadership, but also connected to the community. And so throughout July, we've had the pleasure of hosting a series of virtual forums, and they've been designed to help Miami's voter connect to candidates that are running for key positions in the county. And so if you missed any of those discussions, if you want to catch up on past forums, we actually created an entire website for you to do that. So all you have to do is go to votemiami.org, and you can utilize that website for resources, but also to catch up on past forums. So tonight, while we're all here, we're turning our focus to the county sheriff race, a historic moment, as Miami-Dade is set to elect a police sheriff for the first time since 1966. And this role is the cornerstone of our community's public safety, overseeing law enforcement, managing deputies, investigations, and even jails. And it is a critical leadership position that will shape the safety and security of our entire county. I repeat, it is a critical leadership position that will shape our safety and security of Greater Miami. And so I hope I have your attention. Before passing the mic to our moderator, I want to take a moment to recognize the incredible partnerships that make these forums possible. So I want to give a huge thank you to our partners, AARP Florida, the Haiti Community Trust, Catalyst Miami, the Clio Institute, Disability Independence Group, Engage Miami, Radical Partners, Transit Alliance, the League of Women Voters, and of course, our partners at the United Way of Miami. And finally, friends, I want to remind you that tonight's event is not a debate. It is a forum. And so we are here to listen to the candidates. We're here to uplift their leadership. And we're here to focus on what matters the most, which is our Miami, our community. And so this is about our future. This is not about political parties. So now, it is my esteemed pleasure to introduce our moderator for the evening, the legendary Papa Keith from 103.5 The Beat at iHeartRadio.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you, Faith. And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Vote Miami Candidate Forum, town hall event where you hear from the candidates running for Miami-Dade County Sheriff. As you heard, my name is Papa Keith, radio personality at 103.5 The Beat. I do afternoons with my sister, Kimmy B., and I'm a huge advocate for youth voting, getting our young people involved with the voting process. I have my movement called Just Vote, period, which I use my platform on the radio and social media to encourage the youth and get them involved with the process and democracy. And I'm so honored and glad to be here and have this opportunity with you all right? So again, thank you so much for joining us. Before we meet our candidates, Faith mentioned first time since 1966, Miami-Dade County will have a sheriff in office. And this is an amazing and groundbreaking time for us all. So this is very important, all right? Tonight, our goal is to help voters get to know these two candidates and their plans for the new elected position. We also encourage those in the audience to submit questions for the candidates. We will answer those, a selected few of them later on in the program, but we do encourage you to do it. And now it's time for some ground rules, all right? So we're talking to candidates for sheriff. We got to give them rules, all right? The Miami Foundation wants to create a space of belonging and inclusion for all viewpoints. Whether we agree or not, we urge our candidates to be respectful to each other. Personal attacks and insults will not be tolerated. Each candidate will have equal opportunities to speak. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer questions. If a rebuttal is needed, you'll have 30 seconds to respond. We've provided a timer to help keep, concise and ensure that we hear from each candidate in a timely manner. Candidates should wait their turns to speak, and please do not interrupt each other. We may mute candidates' microphones if they exceed their time limit or violate conduct rules. This is in order to get as many questions as we can, all right? So without further ado, now let's meet our candidates, all right? We're going to begin with opening remarks. Again, you'll have 90 seconds to introduce yourselves and share why you're running for this position. We're going to start off with candidate Reyes and then candidate Cordero Stutes. All right. So let's dive into the questions for the evening. First, I want to extend a big thank you to our nonprofit partners who thoughtfully crafted questions for each of you and each one of the forums. They've brought the voice of the community along with the concerns and perspectives from across Miami-Dade County into tonight's conversation. As a reminder, we encourage our audience to submit questions for the candidates using the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. We'll address a select few later in the program. All right, so now we're going to start with candidate Reyes, and then again, go to candidate Cordero Stutes, and we'll reverse the order for each question. All right, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, appreciate it. Okay, first question. Disabled people of color, and particularly Black disabled people, face police violence, incarceration, and other impacts of the criminal justice system at extremely high rates. How would you address police violence and ensure that disabled people of color are safe from police violence?
Sure, and thank you. And thank you for the Miami Foundation. Thank you, Papa Keith, for putting this very important conversation on, because as public servants, this is the only way we're going to get better, talking to our community and listening to their concerns. Obviously, it's a multifaceted approach to tackle exactly what it is that you're talking about. First and foremost, making sure that our department, our agency, the Miami-Dade Sheriff's Office, represents our community. And not only that it represents our community visibly, but also that it represents its priorities and its values. More so than that, we have to focus on training and making sure that we have the proper implicit bias training that provides the level of sensitivity that our community expects from us when we interact with them on a day-to-day basis. And that is a true critical backbone to who we're recruiting, but what resources we're deploying to making sure that these folks are trained properly so that they communicate effectively and safely with our community. And also then on the backside, after you equip them with those resources, we need to make sure that we follow up and have an early intervention program that identifies officers that have repeated issues with our community. I mean, when you talk about effective early intervention programs, best practices across the country, you're talking about programs that focus on monitoring an officer's sick leave, monitoring an officer's complaints from our citizens, and also monitoring their uses of force so they can be flagged and we can intervene as leaders in this business before it escalates, which all too often, as we've seen across the country, it escalates. And we need to make sure.
Thank you so much, candidate Reyes. Same question for you, candidate Cordero Stutes. Disabled people of color, particularly Black disabled people, face police violence, incarceration, and other impacts of the criminal justice system at extremely high rates. How will you address police violence and ensure that disabled people of color are safe from police violence?
So first and foremost, I want to make sure you can hear me.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, okay. And I apologize. My system is cutting in and out. So I'm getting every other word. And I apologize. So I'd love if you could please just repeat the question for me.
Not a problem. Disabled
Thank
people
you.
of color, and particularly Black disabled people, face police violence, incarceration, and other impacts of the criminal justice system at extremely high rates. How will you address police violence and ensure that disabled people of color are safe from police violence?
Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. So first and foremost, for 28 years, I have served as a police officer serving Miami-Dade County. And I do believe very strongly that we in law enforcement and the policing community and profession need to continually work toward being better at how we do things, learning from mistakes, learning from our past histories. We in Miami-Dade County have a very rich history as a county, as a community. And in law enforcement, we have made mistakes. We have learned from those mistakes. And I'm proud of some of the things that we have learned from, for example, in our history, from the things that occurred in our history, the McDuffie riots, the Lozano riots, right? We learned that we needed to work with our community. We needed to work with the leaders of the community in order to do better policing. And I do believe that it's because of those relationships that we worked, creations such as the Community Relations Board, other organizations such as that we've been able to do better. And we've seen some of the positives that have come out of those things. So one of the things that I plan on doing as a sheriff's office is the creation of a community action board. I want a creation of a board that works with leaders in our community to bring forth to the sheriff's office directly their concerns, issues, problems, but also ideas, work through some of the concepts that we're looking for the future. And I think that working together, we can absolutely get to those ends. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I want to apologize to you both and give you both an opportunity to make your opening statements. I kind of slipped over it, so I apologize. We definitely want to know why you're running for this position. So I'm going to circle back now, and I'm going to start with you, candidate Cordero Stutes. If you could please have your chance to have an opening statement.
Thank you. I thought I got cut out and missed the entire
No,
thing.
it was my bad. It was my bad.
Okay. All right. So Rosie Cordero Stutz, I'm a 28-year veteran of the Miami-Dade Police Department. The reason I decided to run for sheriff and the reason I'm running is because I've given my life's work, my profession, to this community, to serving. And I think this is an important time. It is an important time in our community to establish an independent and professional office of the sheriff. It is an important time for us to have someone who has the knowledge, skills, and the abilities to be able to transition us into this office. So having worked with our community for 28 years, I bring that rich history, right? As a police officer, I bring those skills to the office of sheriff. I have a vision for the future of this county. Having worked here, understanding where we come from, I know where we need to go, and I'm open and ready to work with our community to build our future together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Candidate Reyes, same opportunity for your opening statement, and I apologize.
Thank you. No problem. No need to apologize. Thank you for putting this together. For me, it's been a very personal journey to get to this point to be your candidate for sheriff. Obviously, being raised right here in Miami-Dade County, serving Miami-Dade County currently as your chief of public safety, overseeing Miami-Dade Police, Miami-Dade Fire Rescue, Miami-Dade Corrections has really been the honor of my lifetime, being able to come back home where I was raised and lived the majority of my life, and obviously being a product right here of Miami-Dade public schools. And I heard we have a watch party at Barry University, being a Barry University grad right here local and representing them, and everything that I do is truly an honor. Obviously, experience matters. And for me, when we have this important position, first time in 60 years, we're going to elect a sheriff. For me, being the only candidate that has executive leadership experience in a sheriff's office marks a difference. And having worked at the Broward Sheriff's Office independently for over 22 years, serving from deputy all the way up to colonel there, and being the executive director of one of the largest sheriff's offices in the country, truly prepares me for taking on this challenge here locally, where we're going to have our first sheriff in 60 years and truly transition into an independent public safety model, which we haven't had in over 60 years. So for me, my commitment is to continue to provide public safety for our community, but also to build relationships and build public trust, because without the trust of our community, we cannot have public safety. They go hand in hand, and I'm committed to working alongside our citizens to ensure both.
Thank you so much, candidate Reyes. So a little earlier, we talked about disabled people of color and police violence, incarceration, how it impacts them. Will you continue training your officers on the wallet card project and commit to make sure the individuals in Miami-Dade County can get their own wallet card?
Is that for me? I'm sorry.
That's for you, sir. Yes.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I just met with an immigration community-based organization here locally yesterday. And that was a huge concern for him. And I am committed. I think Miami-Dade is forward-thinking in that respect. And I think that we definitely need to continue that program. I tell everyone, the role of sheriff goes beyond just serving as the director of the police department. The role of sheriff often, for the sheriffs that I worked for that did it right, they served as the conscience of the community. And truly, the sheriff needs to be the leader in our community that voices and supports initiatives like the very one that you're talking about in order to make sure that everyone within our community has a fair shot at achieving the American dream.
Candidate Cordero Stutes, can you please answer the same question? Will you continue training your officers on the wallet card project and commit to make sure individuals in Miami-Dade County can get their own wallet card?
Well, as sheriff, I am a very strong supporter of enforcing the law. It's what I have done for 28 years. And projects such as the wallet card and many others are backed through local ordinances, as we know, because of our county's our local government support. So yes, I will continue to enforce our local government and the local regulations and working. Let me make it clear. For me, it is so important to continue to work with our civic organizations, our all of the organizations that are really the grassroots that help to move our community forward. It's an important part of being able to do law enforcement and police work. One of the things that we learned very early on, like I mentioned already, is that police officers and law enforcement do not do their job alone. We need the support of our organizations, and what they put forth to this community is immeasurable. And so being able to understand what their needs are and then working together to get to that end together is important to me. So yes, I would continue to work to strive to achieve all of those things together.
Thank you so much. I have another question for you. This one is near and dear. What specific measures do you propose to prevent gun violence in schools, and how would you collaborate with local law enforcement, school boards, and mental health professionals to ensure proactive approach to student safety?
Well, I think that we need to continue a joint program when it comes to overall youth violence, and that includes gun violence. Okay, so first and foremost, understanding that the way the system works now, right? We have our local police department within the school system, and then we have sheriff's office that's going to be on the outside of the school system. So we need to work together in order to be able to address these issues and concerns. Supporting our youth outside of before they become involved in the criminal justice system is key. Organizations that support those youth, we need to be a part of. Sheriff's office needs to support that youth as well. We need to have positive engagement. We do have a lot of wonderful organizations, but the PAL program is one of the ones that I think is fantastic, that I've seen work very well with our community. But let's take it to the next step. Then we need to work with the school board in order to make sure that they are getting the support that they need, right? Because they're another smaller department, but we work hand in hand inside and outside of the schools with those same children, right? So supporting each other is the key, having that communication. And then ultimately is those kids that are now high risk, that maybe have already entered the system to some degree, is how can we provide the support and resources that they need to ensure that they choose another avenue. I've worked through my career. I was a homicide detective. I worked Northside District. We work so well with grassroots organizations that support these kids. I will continue to do so. Thank you.
Thank you so much for answering. Candidate Reyes, same question for you. I can repeat it if you'd like.
I'm good, Papa Keith. I would like to say, though, I know we said we were going to have a clock, but I don't see the clock. So if I run long or short, I apologize. I don't see the clock.
Oh, no, we got you. Don't worry.
Okay, no problem.
Give me the
All right,
Sandman music.
I understand. But obviously, it is probably the most important topic to discuss within our community, youth gun violence. The youth is 100% of our future. It is our jewel in our community, and the sheriff has to be a leader that's the most important voice in terms of making sure that other police chiefs collaborate alongside with him or her to make sure that we invest enough in prevention. Because obviously, I can tell you, I'm extremely proud of the proactive, targeted efforts on the enforcement side that we're doing in order to address gun violence. But there's definitely room for us to improve on the prevention side and also on the technology side. From the prevention side, and just today I was talking at the 5,000 role models, and I wanted to make sure that I explained to everyone, one of my priorities being sheriff is to replace that all too often mentioned school to prison pipeline with a school to public service pipeline. And all too often, we don't feature the talent here locally that lead our public service and also create internships and mentorship programs that really team up our troubled youth and the youth that we're concerned about involved in this gun violence with leaders within public safety. Because as I stand before that youth to talk to them, I see the future of public safety in Miami-Dade County. I see them taking the very roles that me and Rosie have had and the very roles that we're aspiring to. But we need to, as leaders, make sure that we create the avenue, that pipeline for them to see that they too can achieve. One of the things I'm very proud of is here locally currently are 4 leaders in the public safety.
Thank you so much. Sorry we had to cut you there, Candidate Reyes, but I'm going to let you talk again, but on a different topic now. In your opinion, how does officer morale directly impact public safety? And what role do you see the sheriff playing in fostering a positive work environment for law enforcement personnel?
I've seen it firsthand. Officer morale is imperative. It's super important into the performance of the officers. If they don't feel like they have a voice, if they don't feel like they believe in the leadership, if the leadership doesn't gain the buy-in from the officers, that impacts performance. And anything that impacts performance obviously has a direct correlation and impact on our officer community relations. We need officers that believe in what they're doing, they believe in their leadership, and that they believe that they're going to receive the resources necessary, the equipment, the technology, the training necessary to effectively and efficiently serve our community. I'm very proud of my track record from a morale standpoint. I've always been identified as a change agent and someone that's willing to challenge the status quo in the most difficult of times. I took over several departments that had morale issues and I turned that around, and I turned it around believing in the local talent that's here, but turning the organization somewhat upside down and giving the officers a voice and having that open door policy that lets me get the unfiltered access to where in the community they feel we need to better deploy resources.
Thank you so much, Candidate Cordero Stutz. Same question. I can repeat it if you like.
Sure, please do.
No problem. My pleasure. In your opinion, how does officer morale directly impact public safety? And what role do you see the sheriff playing in fostering a positive work environment for law enforcement personnel?
Well, absolutely. Do I believe that it is of the utmost importance that our officers and now deputies, as we would like to call them, need to have a good mental wellness state in order to provide good service to their community. I think ultimately it's important to understand that being able to know where they've been and what they're doing. As a police officer myself, I can absolutely be relatable. I understand where they're coming from, what their needs are, what their concerns are, because I've lived the job. I've grown up in the job. And so I think that I bring that perspective to be able to address and support them. One of my platforms is just that, the mental wellness piece for our officers. The truth is that our department, we've been through some trauma. We have had a couple of tough years. I mean, if you look at just the overall, and I can give a couple of overall examples, the tragedy at Surfside, as a department, we were there physically on site for, a long time. That took a big toll on our officers and their well-being as well. Obviously, we all know the tragedy with our director, Freddie Ramirez, what occurred with him. And we're so blessed that he is recuperating, but he is also fighting his fight, and we are here to support him. But understanding that these are the concerns that we live with, in addition to the support and the job that we do. So for me, supporting my officers is part of that morale. I am a leader who leads by example, and I will do that for them. I need to do that so that they can then do the job that they need to do for our community.
Thank you so much, Candidate Cordero Stutes. I'm going to keep it with you for our next question. Given the economic and social challenges in Miami-Dade, how will your office support restorative justice programs and alternatives to incarceration that align with nonprofit efforts to rehabilitate and support individuals?
That's a wonderful question. And I think it's important to understand the entire system and how it works, right? So for me, running a sheriff's office has to be something that I do in a manner that's fiscally responsible for our community. We have to do a good job in providing safe and secure environment. We need to do it in a fiscally secure manner. With that said, what I would do in order to ensure that these means are met is to work with other organizations that have the same mission. And so I will make it part of the sheriff's mission to ensure that we're working with organizations, that we are tapping into state funds, that we're tapping into federal funds in order to ensure that our community is receiving all of the support that they need financially for these organizations. See, because I do believe that the local grassroots organization do these jobs much better than we do as law enforcement. What we do well. And what we can do is support them in order to achieve their means to an ends, right? But for me, I think that working with them and working as a circle, a part of a larger system, is exactly how we can get there. Now, I do believe that for us in the sheriff's office, we also have the ability to tap into some of these resources that maybe they're not aware of, that maybe we need to join forces, because often we need to work cooperatively in order to attain these funds. And we can do that. I'm happy to work together to make sure that we get the funding we need.
Thank you so much. Candidate Reyes, same question. Given the economic and social challenges in Miami-Dade, how will your office support restorative justice programs and alternatives to incarceration that align with nonprofit efforts to rehabilitate and support individuals?
Right. And we're doing that right now, right, through the Peace and Prosperity Plan, and also building upon some of the growth that we've done in 2023 as it relates to ensuring a continuity of care for justice involved individuals. It's critical for us to partner with our community-based organizations, but also to provide them with access. And one of the things that we looked at and we're already bringing in, we're part of our priorities is to implement the software, is the United software that we're bringing to Miami-Dade County, that's considered a best practice in very large communities across the country, where we could actually have referrals to community-based organizations electronically, that they can then flag the user, bring them in, and ensure that they provide those services efficiently and effectively. And it's county and also state funded. But more so, it's one of the reasons why, Papa, I'm so passionate about corrections being part of the sheriff's office as well, because we need to put a complete, from diversion all the way through reentry and reintegration, as part of the entire continuity spectrum, so that we can ensure that we equip our justice involved individuals with the resources necessary and the tools necessary for them to break that vicious silence of incarceration, and for them to have access to not only the nonprofits right after being released, but that the nonprofits know ahead of time when these folks are getting released, what their needs and what resources.
All right, Candidate Reyes. I have one more question for you both before we take questions from the audience. Again, Candidate Reyes, Miami-Dade County has 34 municipalities, many with their own police force and incredibly diverse population influenced by various cultures. How do you plan to partner with these local law enforcement agencies over such a large and diverse area, and collaborate to ensure all Miami-Dade residents feel safe and protected?
Sure. Well, I've started that already as Chief of Public Safety, obviously overseeing Miami-Dade Police, working with a lot of the municipal chiefs, some of which I went to school with, some of which that I grew up with, and we are constant in communication. But with that said, there's a change in culture coming to Miami-Dade County as a result of having a sheriff's office, and I saw it firsthand while working over 22 years at the Broward Sheriff's Office, and it's that The sheriff is elected by all of the residents in Miami-Dade County, whether they have a municipal police department or not. So while our directors have seen themselves as responsible for the unincorporated of Miami-Dade County and the contract cities that we have, the sheriff has to establish a positive working relationship and collaborate with municipal police chiefs and also ensure that we're training together. I think we definitely have space to improve on how we train with one another in terms of agencies. But I tell everyone, when you get a call as a sheriff, only because that municipality has a police chief, that doesn't mean that you get to say, well, there's a police chief, you need to call a police chief. You get elected by everyone in the community. Therefore, you can expect a more active role on behalf of the sheriff, engaging our community, but addressing their needs. And that is only going to happen if we collaborate effectively with our police chiefs.
Thank you so much for answering. Candidate Cordero Stutes. Miami-Dade County has 34 municipalities, many of their own police force, and have an incredibly diverse population influenced by various cultures. How do you plan to partner with these local law enforcement agencies over such a large and diverse area and collaborate to ensure all Miami-Dade residents feel safe and protected?
Well, I'm very blessed to have already been collaborating with them. I've been a member of the Miami-Dade County Association of Chiefs of Police, which works with every 34 municipalities, including myself, Miami-Dade County Police Department, for the past 8 years, because I've been at the executive level working with the police department as a police major and above. My current assignment is assistant director of the Miami-Dade Police Department. I've also been part of the transition team internally, assigned as the leader of the committee. And what I did was work on that transition to ensure that we were prepared, that we were looking at the contracts, right, the benefits, and we took care of our employees and our people so that they can in turn provide good services. And part of that included the memorandum of understandings for some of the municipalities that we provide police services to, which include like Town of Miami Lakes, Cutler Bay, Palmetto Bay. Some of your listeners may be familiar with those. Those are actually currently under my command as well. So for me, I have been working in that capacity for many years. Like I said, with these relationships matter. I've already established these relationships. I would continue these relationships to work into the future. And I absolutely do agree that we need to continue to work always to do things better. We can acknowledge the things we've done well, but we must learn from the things that we haven't done as well and continue to build upon them. And that comes through relationship and communication. As a 28-year veteran and a police officer in this community, these are the relationships I have brought them. So thank you.
Thank you both for answering these amazing questions that were put together by some of our nonprofits, Candidate Reyes, Candidate Cordero Stutes. You guys have been amazing so far. Great job. All right, so now we're gonna go to our questions, our Q&A. We just have 3 of them. But I have to start with my sister. I was just with her the other day, Miss Romania Dukes, not a stranger to, to most of us here. Her question is, on behalf of mothers who lost children to gun violence, once elected, what will be your take on gun violence and the communities that are being affected by it? And I would like to start with you, Candidate Cordero Stutes.
Well, first of all, hello, Ms. Dukes. It's good to, I'm sure you're not answering, but it's good to know that you're on and listening as well. We have worked for many years. Like I mentioned earlier, I was a homicide detective for 5 years. I was involved and oversaw the Homicide Bureau for many years. I also was the major who was assigned the expansion of the Victim Advocate Program when we expanded in our department. We grew that program from 2 victim advocates that were assigned to sexual victims to a 24+ person program. And now we have victim advocates throughout this entire department. And I know that that's something that she knows really benefits benefited our community. But when it comes specifically to gun violence, number one is we need to continue our education of our community. We need to work very strong on supporting the victims and their families. We need to work on working with the state attorney to prosecute these cases properly. And ultimately, we need to work on finding alternative methods to redirect individuals that we identified that are in these pathways that are headed down the wrong way. We've done these. There are many programs, and we don't have the time to get into all of them. And I know that Ms. Dukes is fully aware of those programs that we work through. But I want to work and continue to make them better. Our community is a vast, diverse one. We continue to grow and do good things, but we do it together. That is the key, the communication.
Thank you so much, Candidate Cordero Stutes. Candidate Reyes, same question from Romania Dukes. She would like to know, mothers who've lost their children to gun violence, once elected, what will be your take on gun violence and the communities that are being affected by it?
Well, first and foremost, hello, Ms. Dukes. Thank you so much for your leadership in our community and everything you do, not only for victim advocacy, but for what you do for the Miami-Dade Police Department and your community down south. You know, Papa Keith, we talked about, you know, I know this is something that's passionate to you in terms of the gun violence in our youth, and it's something that we need to continue to focus on, but we definitely need to, in addition to all the other things that we talked about already, whether it was the proactive targeted enforcement or the prevention side for our youth and replacing that school to prison pipeline, we also need to a fresh start. We also need to reevaluate and talk to folks like Romania Dukes, like Tangela Sears, and truly understand the dynamics that have changed. I mean, Romania's down south, the population down south, the calls for service down south have changed dramatically over the last 10 years. And it's imperative that this is the opportunity. The time is now in January of 2025, when we elect a new sheriff, to reevaluate our resources and how our resources are deployed as a department throughout our county and redistribute those resources to better target gun violence. There is nothing more imperative, more important to our community than for us to curtail gun violence. And just doing the same with the same resources, it's not enough. I'm looking forward to redistributing the resources and doing away with a lot of the borders that have existed for over a decade, even though we have seen so much substantial population growth in the south end of the county. We need.
Thank you so much, Candidate Reyes. This next question is from Amy, and it'll go right back to you, Candidate Reyes. Amy says, I'm a member of the Florida Mental Health Advocacy Coalition. Those of us who live in Miami-Dade would like to know how you will approach crisis response for people experiencing mental health crises. Specifically, do you plan to coordinate law enforcement response with 988 and our county's 4 mobile response teams to avoid unnecessary involvement of law enforcement?
So the easy answer to that is yes, but I'll expound a little bit. You know, mental health and mental health crisis is something that's near to dear to my heart. When I talk to youth, I often say sometimes you find your niche, sometimes your niche finds you. And for me, that was it. I found that when folks were trying to avoid mental health, dealing with folks suffering from mental health crises, I found myself very comfortable de-escalating those situations. And that became my niche as I went up the chain of command. And for me, I'm looking forward to working with the community organizations and expanding. We currently have a pilot program at the Miami-Dade Police Department for the co-responder model, but I think it's beyond time now that we expand that model. There's other counties across the state that has a full-fledged approach in terms of deploying a licensed mental health practitioner alongside our officers when the situation arises that someone's suffering from a mental health crisis. And what we find is that when we do that, we don't use force as much as when we only deploy the officer. We also keep both parties from getting injured. And more importantly, more often than not, we're able to divert those individuals from ending up being incarcerated, because we know that 70% of those that are incarcerated currently in our jails suffer from some form of mental health caseload. And we need to do a better job collectively as a community avoiding their incarceration.
Thank you so much. Candidate Cordero Stutes, Amy wants to know, how will you approach crisis response for people experiencing mental health crises? Specifically, do you plan to coordinate law enforcement response with 988 and our county's 4 mobile response teams to avoid unnecessary involvement of law enforcement?
So thank you for that question. Yes, and one of my platforms is actually a mental response. You heard a little bit about it, but for me, that whole responder model, I think is working very well. I really want to see that data collected. I'd like to see that model rolled out throughout this entire county. I think that we can be a model not only for the state. I'd like to see it be a model for the nation. I'd also like to see us honestly become more involved as we used to be with some of our partners in the community, our peer-to-peer groups that we were working with throughout this process as we were working to this co-responder model that I know were really a big part of that success and ironing out that program and figuring out the best way for us to be able to get that done. I believe that Thriving Minds was one of the organizations that was very involved. And I feel that we have gone away from being involved with them as an organization. I would like to see us return to the table with them because I think that they are much more in touch with the needs of the community when it comes to mental care, mental support, and for us as sheriff, again, I mentioned earlier, we're good at what we're good at, but we need to tap into the people who are good at what they do. So those are the things that I would absolutely like to see us support, return back to that grassroots, the community, the support, that co-responder model rolled out throughout the community as well.
Thank you so much, Candidate Cordero Stutes. Let's keep it going, right? With our final question from our Q&A. This one is from Victor. Victor says, how would they change the culture of policing to foster better relationship with all communities from a us, excuse me, they had it in caps, I wasn't sure, from a us against them to a we are here to serve our communities? That's for you, Candidate Cordero Stutes. I can repeat it.
Oh, please do.
Okay, no problem. Victor wants to know, how will you change the culture of policing to foster a better relationship with all communities from a us against them to a we are here to serve our communities?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier my idea that I'm still working on the name. Everybody, I'm open to input. Community Action Board. It is what I want to call it's exactly that, action board with leaders in the community, whether it be religious leaders, business leaders, civic leaders, organizational advocates for whatever, these are people that are going to be able to bring direct communication to the sheriff's office, right? To be able to build out the future of the sheriff's office so that we are all on the same page, not just concerns and issues, but ideas. Where do we as a community, see the future of the sheriff's office? And that is what I want to see. But let's talk about the flip side, right? Because that's a one-way communication. The flip side is these are the leaders that are not going to be able to go back out to their communities to share with their people, the people that they have a trusted relationship with, what the visions are for the office of the sheriff. And that is how we become a we and not an us versus them. So for me, it's very important. Again, I bring it back to that communication of building those relationships and establishing trust. And we do that on a day-to-day basis. We do that in listening to each other. And we do that through the time that we invest in each other. And we do it in a genuine fashion. So I look forward to being able to do that as your next sheriff.
Thank you so much. Candidate Reyes, same question for you from Victor. Victor wants to know, how would you change the culture of policing to foster a better relationship with all communities from a us against them to a we are here to serve our communities?
It's a great question, and it's truly paramount for us to do that. And the way we're going to do that is we have to be able to engage our community in all ranks. It doesn't only start with just saying community policing and making sure that our officers know the neighborhoods and the citizens that they're patrolling, but and that our neighborhoods know our officers, but it goes beyond that. They need to know who's in charge, who the command staff is. The command staff needs to be able to engage with our community and hold forums, just like this one that we're having today, to hear the concerns and be present. I think that word, as I was campaigning and am campaigning still 2 more weeks, is something that our community really wants. They want us to be present. And we need to be able to make sure that, like I said earlier, we reflect our community in everything that we do, from recruitment to training to engagement to enforcement. And then on the correction side, making sure that we do the same in terms of how we treat those folks that are in our custody and how we prepare them to better reintegrate back into our community. And that is what truly builds public trust, that with being transparent and holding folks accountable. There's no shortcuts to being us. Our community needs to be reflected in everything that we do as an organization. When we're serving them, they need to feel that their priorities, that their values are our priorities and our values. And as sheriff, I'm committed to making sure that that takes place in order for our community to truly feel like they're part of our organization.
Thank you so much for answering the questions. As we approach the end of the forum, I'm going to give each candidate now an opportunity to provide their closing remarks. You'll have 90 seconds to share any final thoughts with our audience. And please let us know how, to find you and your platform as well when you're closing out. All right, so I'm going to start with candidate Cordero Stutz, please. Your closing remarks.
Of course. And first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity. I think it's wonderful to be able to get out to as many people as you do in this forum. So Rosie Cordero Stutz, 28-year police officer serving this community. I started in patrol Northside in 1996, and I've come up the ranks. I was a sergeant, lieutenant, actually detective sergeant, lieutenant, police major, police chief, and I'm your current assistant director over investigations. I've dedicated my life to being a police officer, and for me, it is such an important time in our community. I have served proudly, and I continue to serve. For me, it is important that the person who becomes the next sheriff understands Miami-Dade County, understands its rich history in policing, and what we can do to take that forward to the next level. I believe strongly that it has to be a police officer to be sheriff, to serve our community, to understand those basic needs, because morale is important, because training of police officers is important, and to be able to understand where they're coming from in order to address those concerns, to hold them accountable for the same badge that I have worn in this community for 28 years, and I will hold every officer accountable. I do believe that we can do better. We need to do better in how we train our officers when it comes to their engagement with our community. And that is something that I'm willing to do. It's something that I've always been an advocate for, is how to support and train our officers so that they can provide the best service to our community. In the next phase, the office of the sheriff, we will be an independent office of the sheriff. Thank you so much. I'm Rosie Cordero Stutz, your next sheriff, number 72. I humbly ask for your vote. Thank you.
Thank you so much, candidate Cordero Stutz. Candidate Reyes, your turn to give your final closing statements.
Thank you, Papa Keith. You were a true professional. Thank you, Miami Foundation, for all that you do for so many residents here in Miami-Dade County and bringing us together. It is my true honor to serve my hometown of Miami-Dade County as its Chief of Public Safety, overseeing Miami-Dade Police, Miami-Dade Corrections, and Miami-Dade Fire Rescue. And now, after 2018, we prepare to elect our first sheriff in over 60 years. And I would be honored to serve my hometown as its sheriff. Experience matters, and it's important that we elect a leader that knows where we're going. And where that is as an independent constitutional office of sheriff that completely is going to change the paradigm of public safety here in our community, the way that we approach it. And I am the only, and have been the only candidate in this race with executive leadership experience in a sheriff's office, having been a colonel and executive director of one of the largest sheriff's offices in the country and right here in South Florida. So my commitment to you is to continue the work that we're doing, but also be prepared on day one to transition our police department and our corrections department to under one umbrella, a true full service public safety agency that serves as a truly independent sheriff's office to our wonderful community here in Miami-Dade County. I'm committed to you as your public servant to ensure the public safety of our community, but more importantly, to also ensure that we build public trust and open lines of communication so everyone in our community feel reflected within our organization. Miami-Dade, I count on your support. Number 73 on the ballot, James Reyes. Vote. Vote for James Reyes for sheriff. Thank you, Miami-Dade.
Well, thank you so much, candidates. You both, best of luck on this coming election. This concludes our virtual candidate forum for Miami-Dade Sheriff. And I want you to stick around because we have some important announcements. But thank you once again to the candidates, and we really, really wish you the best of luck. Thank you to our audience for tuning in and submitting your questions. Please remember to exercise your right to vote in the upcoming election on November 5th. Please remember the deadline to request a vote by mail ballot to be mailed for the 2024 general election is October 24th. And of course, don't forget it's giving season. All right, now listen, Give Miami-Dade is officially less than 1 month away. Please make sure you mark your calendars for November 21st. Follow us at Miami Foundation on social media platforms. That's Miami Foundation, and visit givemiamidade.org. All right, and be excited about it. It's a great opportunity to help those. Thank you once again for joining us this evening. We ended right on time. Stay informed, stay engaged, and learn more about what's on your ballot at votemiami.org. Thank you so much to the Miami Foundation. I appreciate you so much for this opportunity.